We talk about it in the book as engines or anchors. Are the people in your life, are they engines? Are they driving you forward? Are they making you a better version of yourself? Or are they anchors? Are they pulling you down? The worst are the anchors with an engine attached. They're the ones that are dragging you down aggressively. And the funny thing is, they never think they're anchors. They say, well, I just think you're doing the wrong thing and I want you to do something different. But it's your life, not theirs. And you need to surround yourself with engines in your life, not anchors.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a terrific one. Our returning guest is the founder of the world's leading referral organization, Business Networking International, or BNI, as you probably know it. Dr. Ivan Misner, welcome back to the show.
It's fantastic to be back. Thank you for inviting me back. I must have passed the audition.
You definitely passed the audition, and you've been a request to have you back on the show it comes up all the time. And since you've been on the podcast before, let's jump right into it. And I'd love for you to share about your brand new book, a relatively new book, Who's in Your Room?
Yeah, it's less than a year old. And so here's the concept of the book. Imagine that you live your life in one room, and that one room has only one door, and that one door is an enter-only door, so that when people come into your room or into your life, they're there forever. You can never get them out. Now, luckily, this is a metaphor, but if it were true, Michael, would you be more selective about the people that you let into your life?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what everybody says. So my question is, why aren't we more selective? Because I would argue that it's more than a metaphor, and here's why. What I'd like you to do right now, and all the listeners, everyone listening to this podcast, I want you to think for a moment about someone who was in your life, but you got them out. Because people say to me, it is a metaphor. I can get people out of my life. So great, let's think about that. Think about somebody that you had in your life, you got them out. Well, why did you want them out? Were they caustic, toxic, difficult? What were the reasons? I want you to think for a moment, Michael, about what that person did and why you got them out of your room. And I want you to know that I'm not going to ask you for the name of that person.
Okay. I'm going to give it some thought.
All right.
I will let you in. I read a little bit about your book, started reading it. So I have already thought about it. I've already thought about it. Okay. So I have someone
listening to this. Yes. I want you to have someone in your mind.
I do.
All right. Now, if they're still in your head, they're still in your room.
Absolutely.
Because the things that they did, their fingerprints are all over your brain. One of the people we interviewed was Dr. Daniel Amen, who did the PBS specials on brain science. He's a neuroscientist and psychiatrist. And one of the things he told us was that your experiences with other people, their fingerprints are all over your brain for the rest of your life. And so when we talk about the room, it's not like you can expel them from the room. You can't, because the room starts here on the right side of the temple of your head and ends on the left side of the temple of your head. It is your mind. Your room is your mind. And so the people that you let into your life are in your head forever. And the experiences that you have with that person will impact you forever. And you may be able to minimize that impact, but they're there. And so the concept of the room is that we want you to be selective about the kinds of people that you let into your head or let into your life. Now, you have no choice over some family, your coworkers, whatnot, but you have a choice on many of the people that get into your room. And we have tried to create a book where you can manage that process more effectively.
Incredible. One of the questions as you were asking me to think about this person, and you said all the reasons why I got them out of the room.
Out of your life. They're still in your room.
They're still in my room. I'm speaking, hopefully. Got them out of my room, tried to get them out of it, still in my room, got them out of my life.
Thank you.
The question I have is, why the heck did I let them in my life, in my room?
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, that's the really good question. And I think we've all been guilty of it. I wrote the book. I'm guilty of it. And I think it's from my experience in being guilty of it that had me frame this in a way that made me understand that I have to stop it. Let me give you a great example. There are times when we actually not only let people into our room, we invite them into our room. And here's one example of it. I had a gentleman who I knew was full of drama. And one of my deal breakers, and we talk about deal breakers in the book, one of my deal breakers is drama. But I never came to that realization until I started working on this book. That in a deal breaker is where you just don't want this kind of behavior around you. And one of them was drama. Now, I'm not talking about, we all have drama. I have a little drama. I'm guessing, Michael, even bookkeepers have drama. I'm talking about the people who are dripping in drama every day. There's some drama going on in their life. This guy had tons of drama. I knew he had drama, but I invited him in. I hired him for a project knowing he had drama. And I thought, you know what? I know he has drama. I can deal with it. And the truth is I could, and I was. But what I didn't think about was all the chaos he would create, the people who didn't accept that coming into it. And they had to deal with it. And I had to deal with them dealing with it. And that I didn't expect. And it was at that point, literally with one of my co-authors of this book, Stuart Emery, where he was talking to me about this concept where I was like, oh my goodness, why did I ever let this guy into my room? I went back and fired him that week. And the project turned around completely. And so not only do we allow them in our rooms, sometimes we actually invite them in, and we have to learn how to stop that.
That's something I'd love to learn, and I'm sure we're going to get it in the book, but I'm hoping you can share a little bit on how we stop doing it.
So here's what you need. If you're listening to this, this is what you need. You need a doorman. Now, I'm not suggesting you actually go out and hire a doorman. The doorman is your conscious and subconscious mind. And you can call him what you want. You can call him a bouncer. You can call him a guardian. You can call him a door person if you want to be completely politically correct. Well, the three of us, my co-authors and I, we have had we've lived in places with doormen. And so we call our guard the doorman. You need a doorman, and that's the term I'll use. You use whatever you want. You need a doorman who screens the door and bars entry to people you don't think you want into your room. Now, what do they base it on? And here's the part that is so critical. If you don't do this part, Michael, nothing else I talk about will work for you. You must get good with your values. If you don't know what your personal values are, you can't know who you can accept into your room or who you should accept into your room and who you shouldn't accept into your room. And when you know your values, you then train your doorman, your conscious and subconscious mind, on who's okay to let in and who's not okay to let in. Now, your values don't have to be the same as everyone that you let in. They just can't be incongruent. They can't be dissonant with the people that you let into your room. So that when I let this guy who was full of drama into my room, I knew he was full of drama. I knew that was dissonant with what I wanted, but he was really good at what he did. And so I let him in, and it created chaos. So they don't have to be the same values. They just can't be incongruent or dissonant values. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so one of the values that I would say I have is a value of adventure. So if someone wasn't adventurous, doesn't mean I'm not going to let them into my room. But if somebody was, against it in some way, and it would be, that would create complete friction.
Exactly. If somebody thought that, somebody who's adventurous is crazy, that's probably not a congruent person to have in your room. So we talk about resonance and dissonance in the book. And I'm not a musician, but I have actually seen this take place. Imagine two pianos side by side, and someone presses the middle C key of one piano, and on the second piano next to it, they're pressing the sustain pedal. What's amazing about resonance is that if you hit the middle C key on one piano and you press the sustain pedal on the other piano, the second piano will resonate. You will hear a hum, a vibration from the piano you did not strike the chord with. You didn't hit the wire, the string with, but it will resonate. That's resonance. What you want are people, it doesn't have to be the same piano, but it has to be a resonant value. It doesn't have to be the same value, but it has to be a resonant value. If it's a dissonant value, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. It just doesn't work. And so you want to find people who have values that resonate with yours. And we didn't do this in the book. If I had to do the book over again, I would change the order. I would start with deal breakers. We ended that chapter about values with deal breakers. If I had to do it over again, I'd start with deal breakers. Because if I ask somebody, tell me your top 7 values, it's like watching deer in the headlights. They're like, 7 values? Yeah. Let me think. Honesty. Okay, great. Give me 6 more. And they hem and they haw. They don't know. Most people don't know their values. But if I ask somebody for their deal breakers, what's a deal breaker? They know immediately. I told you one of mine was drama. You can actually have deal breakers for relationships that you have. My wife and I, we've been married 30 years this year. And we have a deal breaker in the other couples that we allow into our room, the other couples that we allow into our life, couples that we go out with together. That other couple must love and respect each other. Love and respect each other. Now, look, nobody loves and respects each other all the time. I've been married 30 years. There have been times where I was maybe not as loving or respectful as I could be, and my wife could, I'm sure, say the same thing.
Oh, no, of course not.
but as a rule, we want to be with couples who love and respect each other.
Yes.
And when we go out with couples who don't, on a regular basis, love and respect each other, we have decided that's not a couple we want in our life. That's a deal breaker. Deal breakers are easy. Values are harder. And in the book, we have some, simple processes to create values, to understand your values. But you could get on Google and just do a search on figure out your values, determine your values, and you'll get that. And you must do that to make everything else in the book work. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and great advice. Anyone that is listening and has not come up with their values, I mean, it's critical in your business. It's one of the things, if you haven't done, you need to do, because it plays into so many parts of our lives and our businesses.
And values can be aspirational, Michael. You can say, this is a value that I aspire to. I'm not living it quite yet, but I aspire to that. Then imagine the rest of your life, somebody is walking around with a video camera. Are you, in fact, attempting to live that? For example, a lot of people, especially men, say family is important. Well, show me. How is family important? What are you doing to make sure that family is important? The older I get, the more gray hair I have, and I have lots, the less I believe in words and the more I believe in behaviors. And so what's the behavior that you have in relation to whatever your value is? And if your value is family, what are the behaviors that you have? Here's one. Family is important to me. Here's how I behaved with family being important. I made sure that if I was in town, I was almost always home at dinner between 6 and 6:30 every night, because that was family dinner. Unless there was some meeting that I absolutely had to be at, and unless I was traveling, I was home every single night by 6:30 to have family dinner with my wife and children, because the dinner table was family time. And that's how I applied that. That's one of the ways I applied that value. And so you got to come up with your values. They can be aspirational, but you got to try to start behaving those values. Make sense?
It makes total sense. Love it. You know, it had me thinking as you were mentioning the deal breakers. Deal breakers. We all have come across and have people that we've removed from in our life, still in our room, but we probably have the deal breakers, but we didn't listen to the deal breakers. We didn't apply the deal breaker. And when you put it in that way, the deal breaker, and just myself thinking about this, if I apply this on to my life and I actually write down and know what, and I'm sure that's what's part of what's good about reading your book, is to actually do the work and think about what are the values, what are the deal breakers, and have the doorman or the person that you've assigned as the guard to hold the integrity around having those. I mean, the implications not only on you're going to have better people that show up in the room, but also just on your own self-worth and confidence as a human being. Yeah. Remarkable.
No question. And, in your field as a bookkeeper, accounting, maybe one of the deal breakers would be somebody who cooks the books. Do you want that as a client? I don't know. It's up to you. That's up to your values. But what if your values are, I want somebody, I don't mind if they push the envelope, but they can't break the envelope. That's a line in my life. And what if you find yourself in a position where they want you to misrepresent the truth? Now you have a decision to make. Is this the kind of value that you're comfortable with? And believe me, I have found that people can rationalize almost any decision they make, but it's your decision, not mine. These are your values. And so maybe it's possible that a bookkeeper will say, no, I'm not good with that. And then you have to turn down business. Are you good with that? My experience is the people who live their values, they don't hit other people over the head with their values. They live their values. Actually end up doing better, because who do they attract? They attract people with their values. And so that's an obvious one to me for a bookkeeper, but every person in every business has their own values. And if you live those values, you are more likely to attract people who live those values or who have resonant values. Then you have a business that's not only more successful, but more fun, more interesting, more resonant with who you are as a person.
Absolutely, to the core. I recently did a talk about filling your business with clients you love.
Yeah.
And essentially this is core. This is core to it, because if you're saying yes to people that don't match your values, like you said, someone who, and the one that comes up is, if you're in a room full of accountants, bookkeepers, they're going to be talking about the person that wants to write off their dog grooming, right? And, we can, like you say, anybody can justify anything, but right. If that's not in line, then if you say yes to them, you're saying yes to their values. They're yes. In your room, and that's going to be continually I forget it's not going to have the resonance. It's going to have the
dissonance. Or incongruent. Yeah.
Incongruent dissonance. That's going to add up. And if you say that to 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, all of a sudden your life is a living hell.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, I think it's so important for you to find the people that you do resonate with and want to work with. It's not quite on this topic, but it's so important. I want to make sure and tell this story about my first bookkeeper. I believe that if you want to be successful in business, you have to work in your flame and not in your wax. And my flame is, being able to do interviews and to write and do things like this podcast. But my wax, there are a number of things in my wax, and I hate to say this to you, Michael, but it's good for business. Bookkeeping was my wax. It's not your wax is what takes your energy away. I'm not good at it. I can do it, but I'm not great at it. And so you want to find people who live your values, but are also can manage your wax. Bookkeepers, to me, if I can find a bookkeeper who's living in their flame, and this is one of the topics we talk about in the book, if I can find a bookkeeper who's living in their flame, that is resonant with me because they are doing the stuff I hate doing. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I had a bookkeeper, the first bookkeeper I brought on for my company. We now have 9,200 locations in 70 countries. At that time, I had maybe 50 locations. Brought in a bookkeeper. The bookkeeper spent 2 hours, Michael, 2 hours, finding my books were not balanced by 5 pennies, 5 cents. She spent 2 hours finding it. And I told this to a friend of mine because she was so proud. She found it. She balanced the books. And I told this to a friend of mine. He said, "Are you serious? She spent 2 hours finding 5 cents?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you reprimand her?" I said, "Are you kidding?" "No, I congratulated her." He said, "Why would you do that? You spent way more money on her time than the 5 cents. I said, "Yeah, but could you imagine if it were $50? She wouldn't go home. $500, she'd put a tent in the office. For me, if it were $50 off, I'd be like, close enough. That's close. I can live with that." But so you want to find people whose values, see, that is a value that is resonant with me. I want the books to balance. I just don't want to do it. And if I can find somebody who can do it, that's awesome. And I not only didn't reprimand her, I congratulated her because that was her value. She wanted to make sure that my books were in balance.
Beautiful story. And I think, number one, it resonates with our audience greatly. Find people like Dr. Ivan Misner who have made the choice that it is their wax. I mean, that's for some entrepreneurs, that is a destination. It's like they finally graduated into, this is valuable, but it's not my core competency.
Right.
Let's get a pro in to do that work. And you're looking for clients like yourself that appreciate it, don't want to do it, but know the value of it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Beautiful. Another question I have around this topic is, as we're talking, I watched a movie recently, The Bohemian Rhapsody. Have you seen the movie?
It's a great movie.
Great movie, isn't it? And one of the things I found interesting was, in times in life, you'll have people in our room and in our life that they fought a lot in the band. But one of the points of the movie, he left the band to do his solo career. And what he found is that there weren't the people there to say no, to challenge him on his ideas, and the work wasn't as good. So there's sort of a fine line between, these people in the room maybe causing some dissonance, or friction, but when is it healthy friction and unhealthy friction, and how to balance that?
So I've been doing these interviews for almost a year now. That's the first time that question was framed that way. I love that question. I think there can be disagreement without dissonance, which is kind of what you presented there. Dissonance is where there's disagreement and it's ugly. It's not, the values are not congruent. I think what they had there were disagreements, but they at the core, they had similar values in the sense that they wanted to produce great music. And sometimes to produce greatness, there's chaos. And I think if the underlying values are similar, you have to learn to deal with the chaos. I've created an organization with 9,000 groups. Do you think there was no chaos?
Whirlwind of chaos.
The whirlwind of chaos. But as long as we stayed true to the values, you can work through I believe you can work through the chaos if both parties stay true to the values. I can have an honest disagreement with you as long as we're both true to the values that we have that are connected. Where it becomes untenable is when you have substantially different values and you have that chaos or strong disagreement. I think what you saw with the movie was the people, they both wanted great music, but Freddie Mercury,
yes.
He went in a different direction. He wanted that adulation to himself. He wanted to be the main guy. And I actually think he was not true to his values. And it came back around full circle where he did become true to his own values. And he couldn't deal with the chaos, and he went in a different direction, and he came back. And not all people do that. And that's a testament to who he was as a person, that he at some point could say, this isn't the direction I really should have gone. I'm going to make this right. That's hard to do. And he did it. It's not easy. You got to stay true. People ask me if I have regrets in life, and I can look them in the eye and say I have virtually no regrets. And here's why. If they ask me, have you made mistakes in life? I would say, oh yeah, I've made a ton. But if they ask me if I have regrets, I'd say virtually none. And here's why. Regrets, I think, are when you don't live your values. When you get off track with your values, you regret that. But everyone makes mistakes. I've made a boatload. But I made those mistakes living true to my values without understanding that the decision I made was probably not the smart one. But it was a decision I made based on the information I had. But I always tried to live true to my values. And so I think if you live true to your values, you can make mistakes and fix it quickly. And so in that movie, I think he made a mistake on his values and he came back to them. Does that make sense?
I think you're bang on, actually, and great application of the values. He really did move away from his values as the fame increased. He let go of his values. The other thing I would say,
and didn't he have an amazing end of life?
Amazing end of life.
Because he came back. What would his life be like? Would they have made a movie had he not come back to his values? I don't think so.
No, he ended strong.
It would have been a sad story movie.
It would have been a sad, yeah. Would have been a story that wasn't told for sure.
Yeah.
But the thing I think in the movie, which was also a powerful message around your book, is he let people, some critical people, into his room that actually led him down a path away from his values.
Yeah, very true.
And we're not congruent with his values. And look, those are maybe some of the mistakes that he made, whether he thought they were regrets at the time or not, we'll never know. But there were mistakes he made, but he came back and redeemed himself for sure. So I think it's why I love the title of the book. I love the concept. And I think it's so important for all of us, our listeners, to do this work, to understand, because life is short. And so who are we spending it with? And how much further can we get if we make the choice to bring the empowering people into our room versus the opposite?
Yeah. We talk about it in the book as engines or anchors. Are the people in your life, are they engines? Are they driving you forward? Are they making you a better version of yourself? Or are they anchors? Are they pulling you down? The worst are the anchors with an engine attached. They're the ones that are dragging you down aggressively. And the funny thing is, they never think they're anchors. They say, well, I just think you're doing the wrong thing and I want you to do something different. But it's your life, not theirs. And you need to surround yourself with engines in your life, not anchors.
Yes. Beautiful. And I guess that comes back to finding people in your life that have those matching values, may challenge you, but they're engines that will challenge you according to your own values, and not having the deal breakers present, right?
Exactly.
I think Freddie in the movie saw the deal breaker. He got to that deal breaker when someone lied to him, and he knew that person lied and validated. That was a deal breaker. Yeah. And that, it's a movie, it's made for Hollywood and all the rest of it, but a great analogy for us all to lead our lives. When we're really clear about those things, we can action them and have more engines in our life, less boat anchors.
Exactly. And the more, I wish I had this book. I wish someone else had written this book 50 years ago, 40 years ago, and I read it. Because, listen, I've had a good life. I can't complain. But I think I'd even had a better life had I understood this concept of the room. And we've all heard this stuff. You've heard it. I could almost tell everybody on the planet where they first heard it. They first heard it from Mom.
I was just going to say, yeah.
When Mom said, I don't want you hanging out with that Johnny kid. He's a bad influence. And so, we all heard this. But what I tried to do with this book was to position it in a way that was different, that could give a metaphor that people can kind of understand, that your life is your room, and that you have control over it. Maybe you didn't when you were 10, but if you're 20, you got control over that room. Take control. Make it the life you want. Be the curator of your room. You can do this. And what we tried to do in the book was to make it very actionable as to very specific steps that you can do to be the curator of your room.
Beautifully said. And the message from our moms and our fathers and our whoever were raised us. I think what's powerful about the book is, as adults, we sometimes take these things, these very simple concepts, for granted, and that's dangerous. And it's our life. And if we want our life to go, if we want all our dreams to happen, we want to have full fulfillment and have happiness and do all the things that we want to do. Well, it's the little things, these important things, if they get taken care of, all that other stuff gets a lot easier. So thank you for writing the book.
Yeah. Listen, my pleasure, and I hope people enjoy it. It's available on Amazon, and it's not only available on Kindle, it's printed, but it's also on audio.
Beautiful.
And the beautiful thing about the audio is all three of the authors read it.
Oh, wow.
So it's one chapter at a time. Each author does one chapter. And we actually have more content in the audio version than the written version, because we did a little ad-libbing. We say when we're doing the ad-libbing, we say, all right, I'm going to get off script now. And we actually add a couple of things on the audio version that aren't in the written version.
Beautiful. Well, I have both, so I will be listening and reading when I can, and I will be leaving your review, Ivan. Before I let you...
thank you. I appreciate that. That helps books a lot. Thank
Absolutely. You. Please, everyone, leave reviews. There's too many fake reviews out there, so that whenever you're leaving a real review, it helps offset those, and it helps get other people the great work that authors are doing to help. So it's great. Before I let you go, I want to thank you. I have so many clients and listeners of the podcast that are members of BNI and literally have changed their life in terms of being able to go out into the world and grow their business in a supportive environment, an environment that's ambitious, and a development. It's a program that really helps people get out of the comfort of their home and out into this, sometimes challenging world where they may have not had or been raised with the tools to do what's necessary to grow a business. And BNI has provided that environment for them. So thank you for doing that. What an incredible legacy you've left for small businesses on this planet.
Well, Michael, thank you so much. I'm humbled by what BNI has become. It's just mind-boggling to me where it's gone.
Beautiful.
But thank you.
Our pleasure. And again, thank you for being on the podcast, your generosity.
Anytime, my friend. Thank you.
And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful and generous guest, please go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.